Hello, and welcome back for episode 47 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah. We are ready for action, so buckle up for this trade deadline extravaganza. I think that's what we may or may not be naming the episode. You'll know if you look at it. You won't know if you won't look at it. But speaking of this fabulous co-host of mine, how are we doing, fella? What's new?
I'm just looking to see how long our trade deadline extravaganza was last year because we went through a lot of stuff. Yeah, it was, oh my God.
Give
I think it
me
was
2 hours
two
and
hours and
57
15.
minutes.
It was 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't have time for it to be 2 hours and 30 minutes today. So we gotta run through these quicker than normal. However, I'm going to pitch we start with something and we're going to do it today. And then if it feels weird and stupid, we don't have to do it again. But because this podcast has always had the element of games and whatnot, especially
Well, it ain't
early
the
on.
Great Canadian Hockey Podcast without a couple great games to play.
So I thought since we've been talking about like random players who have worn the numbers of these podcast episodes for a few episodes in a row now, that I would give you a piece of trivia related to a hockey player that wore the number 47 to start off in honor of episode 47 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. So you're going to get 5 hints about a player. One of them is that he wore the number 47.
Okay.
Um, sorry, 5 more hints about a player.
Oh, that's a lot of hints.
And then it's just
A
name
lot of
that
rope
player.
hints.
Yeah.
That's quite a few rope hints.
Okay. This player, born number 47, was a 2004 first round pick, spent 9 seasons in the NHL playing for 3 teams. He competed in the Olympics twice. He scored the third highest amount of single season points in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League since 2000 in his last year in the QMJHL. And at the age of 33, he was instrumental in a team's underdog run to the Stanley Cup final.
He was drafted in '04.
Yeah.
Is this David Perron?
It is not. That's not a bad guess.
But he's never, I don't think he's ever been number 47.
Competed in the Olympics twice as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's Alex Radulov.
Yes, it is.
Oh. Oh man, I miss watching that guy score goals. The guy gets so pumped up
I
every time
know.
he
The
scores.
guy was the guy was a passionate hockey player, man.
Oh, can you imagine what his cup hoisting would have looked like?
Yeah, it would have been borderline Ovechkin. Like,
He might have started barking. There's a very good chance he would have started barking at the sky, and I would have been here for it.
okay,
Oh,
so we know what this episode's gonna be. Let's start with a few things to talk about before we get just to the pure list of trades because this is gonna be a while here and I have to go pick up groceries. Um,
can we go towards first? I want to go towards. I love
yeah,
torts.
let's do torts first.
Oh man, I love talking about torts. Okay, I mean, ejected from a game, refuses to leave the bench when he's ejected. Wes McCauley, probably like the current most respected ref in the league, I would say, or like one of the main guys. He was the ref that was making the call there, and he assigned Garnet Hathaway a 10-minute misconduct. Torts doesn't like it, argues it. West tries to send Torts out. Torts refuses. Very clearly says the words on the bench, "I'm not going." And at one point, I think he pointed at Wes McCauley and basically suggested he leave. Yeah, then eventually Torts leaves. And I believe has he been suspended 2 games and fined $50,000?
That was the punishment, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, first you give me your thoughts because mine are going to be much less sensible because I love Torts.
Yeah, I am not surprised at all that the National Hockey League did not view this with the same comedic lens that the entirety of hockey social media did. Yeah, there was an element of this was funny, but I can also totally see and empathize with the element of it that like this is not okay if a referee is ejecting you from a game.
God, you're
You,
so practical.
you
Ugh.
have to go. Like, again, yeah, it was humorous, but I'm not surprised that the suspension and fine was soon to follow per se. Um, yeah, and then there's also the like incident itself, the Garnet Hathaway misconduct to talk about. It was a weak call, and it's hard to argue with the fact that Tortorella would have been upset about it.
He
Um,
he drive-by shoved Anthony Cirelli after coming off the bench for a line change after a whistle and getting into skated over to a scrum that he wasn't involved in and just gave Anthony Cirelli a shove. If the shove was like 2 degrees hotter, this is what I was telling Aiden. If it was like 2 degrees more of a big deal, that shove, I would understand the 10-minute misconduct. But as Aiden has pointed out to me, a player coming off the bench to something he's not involved in, even if it's coming off the bench for a line change, is considered a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal, but the powers that be think it's a big deal. So
yeah, every hockey league you're gonna find that has any sort of comprehensive set of rules. Basically, any hockey league that isn't like a pickup game will specifically single out a rule about somebody coming off the bench and then engaging somebody before the puck is dropped in anything, right? Like there's even rules about if like Hockey Canada rules for junior players that you can be assessed a suspension for staged fighting if you come off the bench, set up for a face-off, and then fight your opponent the second the puck is dropped. Like it's there's some pretty intense rules about it. So I'm not surprised he got a misconduct. Yeah, you're right. The shove itself did not look worthy of a misconduct, and you can kind of understand why Tortorella's pissed off. But the other thing that the referee is dealing with there, I think it was 3-0 at the time. It was quickly 4-0 Tampa Bay early in the first period. And it's pretty obvious that Garnet Hathaway is just trying to stir the pot because his team is playing flat and they're not engaged, and he's trying to get them engaged in the game. And I think that's pretty easy for a referee like Wes McCauley to identify and say, all right, this is a blowout already. I'm not letting this get rough. I'm not letting this get, reach a boiling point. Um, but yeah, Tortorella, as humorous as the, Jordan Belfort Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not leaving thing was on the bench. I'm not surprised about the punishment. Uh, Tortorella, he's a constant source of talking points, and that continues into today.
I love him and I will continue to love him. I respect that man immensely. He is I think the first thing I ever uploaded to YouTube when I was 13, the title of it was John Tortorella is a Boss. And it was a clip that I got on my BlackBerry Torch with terrible quality. And it was I believe Dolan had just said in the media that he's gonna start thinking about like a cup parade or cup rings or something like that. And then Tortorella goes, "We're just thinking about the next game." I don't know what he's talking about. I don't care what he's thinking about. But this team and me, we're just thinking about the next game. And I was like, yeah, he's a boss. That was what 13-year-old me thought back when people would say stuff like a boss, and he's a boss. I'm kind of glad no one says that anymore. But yeah, that's all I got on torts. I think I want to go over the wackiness and kind of awesomeness of Minnesota pulling their goalie for an extra skater in overtime and winning. Can you run us through the situation, what happened, and then I'll give my piece?
Oh man, I really liked this too. Like John Hines has all my respect for this. So it's yesterday, the Minnesota Wild are playing a game against the Nashville Predators, who they are in competition with, very tight competition
And
with.
Hines used to coach.
Yeah, for the wild card spots in the Western Conference. So Minnesota's, I think, 10 points back at this time. They're in overtime with Nashville. It's 3-3. Like they're looking, they have 18 games left of the season. They need every point they can get, especially in the head-to-head game with the Predators. So they put it all on the line, and with possession of the puck with 90 seconds to go in overtime, they pull the goaltender and throw out an extra attacker. And in a 3-3 game in overtime, they start a 4-on-3 power play without a goalie in net. And sure enough, beautiful cross ice pass finds Matthew Boldy, who rips in the game winner, and Minnesota win it. James, like I loved this. I absolutely adored this move by Hines. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so gutsy. And I think, like obviously there's a tremendous burden to bear if you're John Hines and the Nashville Predators score and you end up losing the point you already earned. um, which is the rule, which seemed to surprise everybody in hockey, which again,
Why is that a rule no one knows about? Why is that a thing that no one is just commonly understanding this?
yeah, well,
Because
and
I didn't know. I had no idea.
yeah, yeah, and I guess it doesn't come up in the NHL too often. Um, I think the times I've experienced it come up in hockey is in situations where it's like tournament group play and a team needs the overtime win and cannot afford an overtime loss to advance to the next stage of whatever tournament they're playing. Um, because then it becomes a factor. Like, oh, if we get 1 point, we're in this tiebreaker thing. If we get 2 points, we're automatically through. But if we get 0 points, we're automatically out, right? So I know that's gone into tournaments that I've been involved in or worked. Um, so maybe that's why I knew just it's happened to come across my hockey life. But yeah, Minnesota would not have got 1 point. If you pull the goaltender for an extra attacker in overtime and they score on the empty net, you forfeit your point, and the other team just gets 2 points. Um, so yeah, that makes it extra gutsy and extra risky if you're John Hines, but it worked out. It's kind of like pulling the goalie with 10 minutes left in the third period. You're an idiot until it works.
I think it's awesome. I love it. I think
Me
it's a
too.
total rock star move. That and, like you see someone else do that, and say you're the coach on the opposing team, you go, "Whoa, he's confident." And then if you're those players, are you thinking, "Whoa, open net," or are you thinking, are they really that confident?" I'm thinking both, but some of the latter for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm more, in that moment, I'm more like, okay, now I need to shift to a penalty kill mindset that I definitely wouldn't have had as Kirill Kaprizov's just skating up the ice with a puck in normal 3-on-3 overtime, right? Like it's a very sudden, okay, they have an extra guy now, right? And I think that's what I would be focused on as much as anything is, because chances are they would have had a different three players on the ice if it was a penalty kill, right? Like it's the entire strategy of the game shifts. And yeah, if you get the puck in your own zone, you got a 150-foot shot at a 6x4, right? You're taking that and you like your chances. But man, yeah. No, that was something to behold. I hope that's not the last time we see this in the NHL, honestly.
It won't be. Someone's probably going to do it next week now. You know how things are. Things trend in this league, but we have a lot of trades to talk about, but first, let's maybe talk about a couple trades that didn't happen. I mean, I saw that it was reported that Linus Allmark nixed a move to the LA Kings. Originally, I saw that he had shut down a move with his no trade clause, and then I saw that specifically it was he could have gone to the Kings. I have no idea what that package would have been. Zero idea. It could have been small, could have been big, could have been random. There had to have been money going the other way. Aiden, what do you think about this deal? And maybe what do you think the package could have been?
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking what the package could have been. It made a lot of sense for the Los Angeles Kings. Like there are questions about Cam Talbot and David Riddick's, sustainability. I have tremendously more faith in Cameron Talbot than David Riddick. I'll say that without a shred
You
of
would
a
say
doubt.
Cameron Talbot?
That's his name.
Really?
Yeah, it is.
You know that for sure? Is that confirmed?
That's like it's on his hockey DB page. I'm quite sure. Last time I looked
Really?
up his stats, it definitely was Cameron Talbot.
I've
Yeah.
never seen him called anything more than Cam Talbot.
Yeah. Not that I call him Cameron Talbot often. It was just accentuating my point about David Riddick. But I yeah, it's hard. It's hard to guess what the return would have been without a doubt because the Los Angeles Kings, like you said, are, pretty close to the salary cap. Linus Ullmark's got a pretty high cap hit, but it made a lot of sense for the LA Kings to pursue Ullmark. They are a pretty strong team, both defensively and offensively, and the question mark in the playoffs would likely have been goaltending. You look at the LA Kings, Cam Talbot and Stuart Skinner. You can definitely make the argument that Talbot's had the better year start to finish. Skinner's probably hotter right now. Um, but you've also got Thatcher Demko. You've got a very, very strong Aiden Hill, who this season has proved that the playoffs last year were no fluke, and he is for real. Um, and then you move on to a conference final where you're playing an Alexander Georgiev that's been awesome for Colorado. You're playing Connor Hellebuck. You're playing Jake Ottinger. Um, so that chances are you're not gonna win that goaltending battle. And that already is immediately advantage whoever your opponent is. So going for
Aiden, how
Olmark.
did every single playoff series that you predicted based on goalie battles go last year?
Not good for sure. Um, Mind you, in the first round, not very good. I definitely had Carolina's goaltending expiring when they faced Florida, and that definitely happened. They also couldn't score, mind you. Like
Yeah.
that was part of it. But you can also then spin it around, make the argument that yeah, they couldn't score because Bobrovsky made sure they couldn't score. Um, but Olmark nixing the trade to LA is interesting too.
I'd
Like
go.
he's going from a contender to a contender. It's not like Boston's dumping him on Chicago or something to clear cap space. Like you get a chance to be the guy. He's not the guy in Boston. Like I know he's the former Vezina winner, and if you're not paying attention, it's like, oh, why wouldn't he be the guy? Because Jeremy Swayman's probably a better goalie. Like I'm a big Swayman fan. He's an excellent shot stopper. He's 25 years old. He's got a 922 that followed up a 920 last year and a 914 the year before. Like this guy is consistently great. And I think the Bruins moving one of them makes a tremendous amount of sense. They have, two excellent starting goalies, and most teams in the NHL can't say they have one excellent starting goalie. But it doesn't work out. And now let's shift to what might the return have been, James? Do you have any thoughts?
Um, I think you could have seen I think some of those prospects that haven't worked out as much per se, like you already saw the Kings move on from Rasmus Kupari. I wonder if we would have seen an Arthur Kaliev go the other way. Maybe I would go like Arthur Kaliev, a draft pick, and a contract. I think that's probably what it was. Like a something making like $3 or $4 million.
Yeah, it probably would have had to have, no, not even probably. It would have, without a doubt, would have had to have been a first round pick if you're just going Kaliev, a roster player, and a pick. Samuel Fagamo is the one that kind of made me think. He was on waivers twice this season, but then after he cleared waivers for Los Angeles, he's put up 34 goals in 37 American Hockey League games, which is a pretty good indicator that he's ready for a middle six NHL role, or at least a middle six NHL look. Um, Obviously Los Angeles, even with moving Sean Walker in the offseason, they still have a little bit of a uh that they're defense rich, I'll say.
Defense
Tobias
rich.
yeah, Tobias Bjornfot has been claimed from waivers twice this year. Los Angeles lost him to Vegas, and then he has now ended up with the Florida Panthers where he's um on the team. Jared Anderson Dolan's the other one kind of in that hadn't worked out category yet that I had the thought of, but
I was thinking his name too.
he was claimed off waivers on March 7th, which was the day before the
Oh,
deadline by the Nashville Predators. So it would have had to
that's
have
bad. I
been
wasn't thinking his name.
yeah,
That's all.
well, and March 7th probably was well after the Hawks had gotten underway for the Allmark trade. So he definitely could have been on the table prior to. Um, Alex Laferriere, the other name I kind of thought of, 22-year-old third round pick that they really like
Yeah,
out
they
of,
really like him.
yeah, Harvard University. He's played 62 NHL games this year, right? Hasn't been to the AHL once, despite the fact that he is waiver exempt, which tells you something, especially with them having lost Fagemo and Anderson Dolan on waivers this year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, we could speculate a lot about it. I think it just would have been nice to see that move. Just another team having a really solid goaltender. It would be, I don't know, it would make things more interesting. And then that's just another big move. And we also don't have to continue talking about both goalies in Boston.
Yeah,
That's
that does end, which would have been nice.
like it was cool and all when they were just like hugging each other and they had their little handshake after wins and stuff like that. But I don't really care for it anymore. It's that drum's been beat enough. So with saying that drum's been beat enough, I want to talk a little bit about one other trade that didn't happen, and that trade didn't happen because Gensel got traded elsewhere. Seemed like the Rangers had a package on the table that may have included Capo Caco plus. I think that would have been something. What else do you think would have been involved in that deal? And why do you think it didn't happen?
I obviously was pretty up to date. I kept my ear on the ground in terms of the Jake Gensel to the Vancouver Canucks rumors.
Back must be sore.
um, and it seemed like Pittsburgh's ask was pretty significant. I imagine it would have probably not just been Capo Caco. You would have probably have to have talked about somebody like a Zach Jones who has been pretty good in the AHL. I probably only hasn't made the NHL because the Rangers are such a competitive, strong team.
Zach
Um,
Jones' name on Instagram used to be, I don't know if it still is, Fonzo Ball.
that's funny.
Yeah.
um, and Braden Schneider is the other guy that I thought maybe could have been involved in serious talks, right?
He's
Like,
so good. I like him.
yeah, he's awesome. And he's kind of stuck in a number five role because of Adam Fox, Counter Miller, Jacob Trouba, and Ryan Lindgren. So it makes sense that he would have been identified as a guy like, okay, well, we're not taking one of your top four defensemen, but we really like this guy. And I can totally see why the New York Rangers would not have wanted to move him, especially with Jacob Trouba now being recently 30 years old. Um, the other factor that has to be addressed is the fact that the Carolina Hurricanes have such a huge prospect pool and so many quality players in that prospect pool. You look at the New York Rangers, they have had a hard time with drafting and development. That's just a fact, right? Like they hit on Keandre Miller in that 2018 first round. That was awesome. Philip Hedl was their second 2017 first rounder. They hit on him. Lias Anderson was their first at seventh overall. They definitely did not hit on him. You've had Vitaly Kravtsov, Capo Caco, even to an degree Alexi Lafreniere and Brendan Othman go by where you aren't too sure about if they're going to become the players that they were touted to be. And I think that would have made them extremely unwilling to move on from somebody like Gabriel Perreault, who's having an amazing season at Boston College. He was their first round pick in 2023. And I can
I do remember
imagine,
seeing the Othman was on the table.
pardon?
I do remember seeing the Othman was on the table.
Yeah, no, and that probably would have deterred them as well. He's had a solid year with the Hartford Wolfpack in his first professional season. Um, and like the players that the Carolina Hurricanes gave up, all strong prospects, but they're probably numbers 3, 5, and 7, if that, in their prospect pool. Whereas the New York Rangers would have had to give up one or two of their top three prospects, and I think they would have been more unwilling to do that. Like I had heard that Gensel, they asked for Gensel was one of, if not both of Hoglander and Lekuramaki from Vancouver. Well, Lekuramaki's probably their number one prospect, and Nils Hoglander's been somewhat of a revelation this season. He's got 20 goals, and he's second in the NHL among 5-on-5 goals per 60. So you can see why the Vancouver Canucks would have been deterred away from that. And if the ask from the New York Rangers is something similar, their number one prospect in Gabe Perreault plus a roster player, a solid roster player like Capo Caco, if I'm the Rangers for a guy who is without any shred of a doubt a rental, There's no way they could have re-signed Gensel. Um, I like what they did instead, and we'll get to it. Um, and I like Pittsburgh's return from Carolina, which we will also get to. Did you have any more thoughts on Gensel and the Rangers?
No, no real thoughts other than I wonder how far to the finish line Vegas was, considering they were supposedly in on Gensel as well. I mean, like we could speculate forever about what all these packages could have been, but fact of the matter is he is a Carolina Hurricane, and that's what ended up happening, and we'll talk more about it later. I guess I think we're going to go back to March 1st on trades, and we're gonna start with Curtis McDermott as we make our way through every trade that was made leading up to the deadline and the ones that trickled in as it came to a close. But yeah, March 1st, New Jersey went and added a enforcer who plays either forward or defense. Um, in Curtis McDermott. As an Avalanche fan, I love Dermy. He's a lot of personality, and he's definitely an imposing figure and a contender for the league's heavyweight belt. And yeah, they traded a seventh round pick and forward Zakhar Bardakov. So he was basically traded to New Jersey for I'm assuming nothing we'll consider relevant in the future. But yeah, any thoughts on the Devils loading up and adding someone in to defend against Matt Rempe?
Yeah, I mean, Bardakov was a seventh round pick. He's been, pretty average in the KHL, middle six forward there. Um, I like the trade for the Devils. It's like you said, they for a relatively low price, they get bigger, they get stronger. You look at that Devils team already, and it's like you said, like if somebody like a Ryan Reeves or a Matt Rempe come calling, they didn't really have anybody to answer that bell. So why not get somebody to answer that bell, especially if you're facing down the barrel of, if not this season, because they are pretty far out of the playoff spot right now, eventually having another playoff series with your most hated rival. Um, so yeah, it made sense for the Devils, low cost. Why not?
The only question I have about this deal is if the Devils and the Rangers are to play each other in the playoffs this year or perhaps next year, and both these players are on the roster, how many times do McDermott and Rempe fight in a 7 game series? I put under 3.5.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think it's more likely to be two than above three.
Yeah.
Um, but the Devils right now are not only are they behind the New York Islanders by 6 points for the last playoff spot, with the Islanders having a game in hand, but they've got Washington and Detroit ahead of them. So it'd be a lot of teams to have to pass to get into the playoffs this year. I don't see it happening for Jersey. Um, but
But I
if
won't rule it
so,
out. I won't rule it out.
yeah, if so, it's a good move. Um, if not, he's probably an easy guy to sign under $1 million. He's making 987 this year. Get him for something similar for next year, another 1 year deal. See if it works out. Washington get a second and a fourth, retaining 50% of Anthony Mantha from the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for the aforementioned Anthony Mantha. This is not the Anthony Mantha of old. This is the $5.7 million often third line forward who can score on the power play. But the Vegas Golden Knights have a plethora of cap space to use, which we'll get to later. And for a second and a fourth round pick, I don't hate it, James, right? Playoffs are so often a war of attrition. You have this guy who you can deploy in a lot of different scenarios, right? He's a really big dude. He's 6'5", 235. He can throw his body around. He can be used in a third line role. He can be used in a first line role. He's a solid finisher who isn't too great in his own zone. And to me, this is a completely fine move for Vegas to make. I don't see the second and the fourth being too much of an overpay. I think the Washington Capitals did a very good job to get a second and a fourth for a guy who is not only overpaid, but overpaid on an expiring contract. Um,
He's got 20 goals this year.
he does, and that's huge, right? I think that if Mantha was like he's improved over his last 2 seasons with the Washington Capitals for sure. Um,
In 56 games with the Capitals this year, he had the same amount of goals that he had over 104 games over the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that was a huge part of Vegas saying, all right, like let's take a chance on this guy. He's showing this season that he can be what he was in Detroit, which was a 25 goal scorer. Um, yeah, not a whole lot more to say, James. What do you think?
Yeah, a perfectly fine move. Yeah, Vegas made their roster better with that move. Next up though, somewhat similar move. Florida adds Vladimir Tarasenko at half the cost of his salary, and for the price of a third round pick and a fourth round pick, that will become a third rounder as well if Florida wins the cup. Tarasenko is already very clearly meshing very well on a line with Alexander Barkov and Sam Reinhart. Saw he had a 3-point game recently. This is found money for Florida for me. That's what I see is like, okay, you acquired a veteran scorer with one hell of a reputation for being a dangerous player that's definitely slowed down in his later years, especially after a couple pretty ugly, what was it, shoulder surgeries, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a pretty sweet season with St. Louis the year before he was traded, but um, yeah, he's dangerous on that Panthers team. He looks dangerous. Their slogan in last year's playoffs was "Time to hunt." It looks like Tarasenko is ready to hunt. He is ready to go. I mean, you add him to what I already considered a very, very dangerous forward core in Florida, and you make it that much scarier. I think that's all I've got on it. You got anything else?
Yeah, I mean, this is a proven playoff guy too, right? 44 goals in 97 career playoff games. He had 11 goals the year that the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. Um, Last year when we did this, I was way too like impartial on a lot of these trades. I wouldn't declare a winner because I was like, well, it's a rental. If they don't re-sign him and they don't go far in the playoffs, the team that sold probably won the trade. Man, Florida fleeced Ottawa. Like this
Are
isn't
you
even
accusing your past self of being boring?
a little bit, but like there's nothing boring about how slanted this trade was. Like,
Yeah.
and this happened a day after Mantha's trade, so it's not like the market wasn't obvious for somebody like a Vladimir Tarasenko. I really think there is no way they should have got less for Tarasenko than what Mantha fetched. The guy had scored 41 points in 57 games so far this season. Like I said, proven playoff performer with a good track record at $2.5 million. Like and I'm looking at this through the lens of holy crap, I would have loved Vancouver to have done this, right? Like I don't know how easy it would have been to fit the $2.5 million into their team, but man, like Ottawa should have done better without a doubt. And this is one of the, if not the best trade of the deadline for the buyer.
Yeah.
It's huge. And like you said, 2 goals and 3 points already in 2 games for him. Makes a scary Florida forward core even scarier. And the Panthers are, they're in this year. They're in it to win it. And they just got closer to competing for it.
Time to hunt.
Yeah. I don't think they're bringing that back though. It'd be
They
nice.
should. I thought it was good. I
It
liked
was
it.
fun. Yeah, it was fun. Um,
Okay, next up, the Edmonton Oilers acquired their rental of choice in Adam Henrique. Wait, is this a rental or does he have another year?
no, it's a rental.
Okay, yeah. So they acquire Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick, goaltender Ty Taylor, and a seventh round pick, whereas the Ducks are getting a first rounder in 2024, a fifth rounder in 2025, and a another fifth rounder in 2025. But that the reason that looks weird is because there are some conditions here, and the Lightning crept in and weaponized their cap space and acquired a fourth round pick in 2025. The way this all works is the Ducks are retaining half of Henrique's salary, and the Lightning are retaining another 25%. Ducks are retaining 50% of Carrick's salary. Both of those fifth round picks are upgrading to fourth rounders if Edmonton wins the cup, whereas the fourth rounder, the Lightning, are getting changes to 2026 if the Oilers win the cup. It's really weird to see Tampa Bay weaponizing cap space and not using all of it for roster players.
Yeah, definitely. And it speaks a little bit to where the team is, which is not at the top of the league. I like it a lot for Edmonton. I do. I know there was a lot of Oilers fans that thought this was an overpay, and objectively it might have been, but you get Adam Henrique for 75% retained. Again, another guy who can play a lot of different situations you throw him in. He's a middle six center that can play the defensive penalty killing role. Another guy who it's hard to call him a proven playoff performer when he was in the playoffs once as a rookie 12 years ago. But he was very good in those playoffs. Um, uh, and I like Sam Carrick for Edmonton, more forward depth. Definitely a good throw in that trade. And you know what? The Edmonton Oilers want to win the Stanley Cup this year. They very well could. If they do, or if they come close, the draft pick will be late in the first round. And after 16 or 17 players in this first round, it drops off a little bit. You're not getting a super valuable first round pick late in the draft. So I don't hate the idea of trading the first round pick. I didn't hate it when Vancouver did it for Lindholm. And for the Edmonton Oilers, could you have used the assets differently? Maybe, but this fills a need. Like the Oilers have a lot of high end scoring talent. That's not what was required. I like the line of Evander Kane, Adam Henrique, and Corey Perry. It's a little bit slow, but it can do the job that the coach needs it to do. And I don't think this trade uh, garnered the hate it seemed to get from a lot of Oilers fans. It was solid from Edmonton. They were always going to move their first round pick, and to get a player as useful as Henrique for 75% retained, just take it.
And they also got Sam Carrick, who could play on their fourth line if needed.
Yeah, and he did in his first couple games. They,
Yeah.
and it left the door open to get Troy Stetcher as well, which I liked that move a lot. Number 6'7" defenseman, great depth piece. Again, playoffs can be a war of attrition. You can't have too many useful players.
Okay, next up, I feel like this one's all me, hey.
Next two, man.
Yeah. Yeah, this one comes in tandem. Well, I was laying in bed, my own bed, for this. Very happy to be in my own bed after all the time I was away. And I, w- I get breaking news. Colorado trades Bowen Byram to Buffalo for Casey Middlestat. And I'm like, whoa, pure hockey trade. That's cool. Oh, wait, I'm an Avalanche fan. We finally got a second line center. And then the phase three kicks in of my reaction just as the second trade is getting announced. And yeah, and it's that Bowen Byram's going. Oh, wait, I love Bowen Byram. And then yeah, I started watching all of the cup celebration videos, and I remembered the moment that a police officer tried to arrest him thinking he was a fan during their cup parade, and he had to convince the police officer that he wasn't a fan and he in fact had just won the Stanley Cup. But yeah, Colorado gets their second line center. I I'm happy that happened. And then you start wondering about the decor, how that's going to look without Byram. Byram was kind of filling in he was kind of like in a number four, number five role, kind of stuck in that position. He often played up when there were injuries. That wasn't the case this season, as Colorado's blue line has mostly been healthy, but they supplement their blue line by supplement their blue line by adding Sean Walker. And Sean Walker was probably the best right shot D on the market, I would say. And they get him in a fifth round pick for Ryan Johansson, who wasn't really working out there. He started the season as a second line center and being on the first power play. And by the end of the year, he was primarily deployed on the third and fourth line. And a first round pick. That first round pick in 2025 is top 10 protected as well. I would hope that it wouldn't need to be top 10 protected, but um, I mean, I guess just that's just hedging yourself, like just covering any potential mishaps. But yeah, I feel like with that pair of moves, Colorado becomes significantly better. Um, do you have any thoughts on that one at all?
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough. I like Bowen Byram a lot more than I like Casey Middlestat, but I still think Colorado won the trade despite that.
Yeah.
Middlestat almost 60 points in 82 games last year. He had 47 and 62 with Buffalo, which was leading the team. This is a 25-year-old that was starting to show signs of the B word in his second NHL season because he just, he wasn't keeping up to the NHL pace. That was as much his problem as anything. This is a tremendously talented player who just couldn't do the things in college, in the NHL that he could do in college and junior, in terms of his skill with the puck. But you know what? He adapted and had a breakout 2022-23 season, has been solid this year, and I think is a wonderful second line center for the Colorado Avalanche. I think this is an awesome move in terms of the player they're getting. Now, the player they're giving away, Bowen Byram, I love this guy. I thought he was awesome during the Cup run. I think his ceiling is astronomically high. The thing that I wonder for the Buffalo Sabres, James, and it's worth mentioning, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, Bowen Byram, Matthias Samuelsson, Ryan Johnson are all left shot defensemen. Um, I hope one of them can play the right, or else God knows what what the plan is there. Um,
Well, it
we
seems they started things off by playing Byram and Darlene together.
Yeah, that's bold. But I like bold.
Hmm.
If it clicks, all of a sudden you have two tremendously talented puck moving defensemen on the same pair, and that's scary for any team to play against. Um, the next trade, Sean Walker for Ryan Johansson and a first round pick. I think getting Philadelphia to take Ryan Johansson was, as much as anything, the best part of this trade. I will say again, the Colorado Avalanche are a team that, once they have everybody healthy, I think are my pre-playoff Stanley Cup pick if everything meshes. So ergo, your first round draft choice would be, you know, I mean, this is a 2025 pick, but if you're a Stanley Cup contender, chances are it's a later pick in the draft, which no reservations against giving that up if you are a contender. Um, and you get Ryan Johansson's $8 million off the book for next year too, right? This wasn't a guy that was a pending UFA. They dumped $8 million of Ryan Johansson's contract. This is a guy that was a third line center at best so far this year in terms of his play. I know he was deployed higher in the lineup than that.
Really good
Um,
at face-offs.
little win for him. Not good enough at faceoffs to stay in the NHL though, because Philly immediately sent him to the minors. So Ryan Johansson will be a Lehigh Valley Phantom. And then you get Sean Walker for a first and Johansson, which is again nothing but good for Colorado. Walker is what they needed on that back end more than they needed Bowen Byram, I think. Especially in this Stanley Cup run that they are embarking on. I think that's two amazing trades for the Colorado Avalanche. Losing Bowen Byram, I would say hurts a little bit, especially how high I am on the guy, but you fill the imminent and pressing need for a second line center. You get a very solid right shot defenseman. You give up a first round pick, a young defenseman with a lot of upside that you don't know if he's going to hit for your team yet. He definitely hadn't fully hit for your team yet. And you shed $8 million in a player that probably should be paid two right now, where he is in his NHL career.
Yeah, I really, really want to do this next one, this next trade, specifically based on the fact that the Rangers have acquired Alexander Venberg from the Seattle Kraken for a second round pick in 2024 and a conditional fourth round pick in 2025. The Kraken retained 50% of Venberg's salary, but that conditional fourth round pick will become a third rounder if in the next 18 games or so, defenseman Niels Lundqvist on the Stars puts up 40 points. Do you like that condition, Nathan? And that condition exists because there was a trade between the Rangers and the Stars, and the pick that the Rangers acquired became a better pick if Lundqvist kind of realized his potential and became a 50-point defenseman. So if he recorded 55 points. But that's the trade being moved, and the condition still applies. So um, I guess the Kraken are hoping that Lundqvist has the best last 18 games of the season a defenseman could have since Bobby Orr.
That's quite funny that that translated the way it did. I like that a lot. Um, I like Wenberg. He's a bit of a polarizing player to me, where, like there are flashes of, oh my God, this guy's hockey IQ is ridiculous. He's one of the best passers I've ever seen. And then there's flashes of, I don't think he broke a sweat today. Um, I don't mind the move for the Rangers. Again, you didn't get Jake Gensel, but you get a solid 29-year-old centerman who can play in a few different situations and has offensive upside. Again, playoffs can be a war of attrition. This is a guy that can play in your bottom six to start. And if you need him to, he can move up in the lineup. If you need him to, he can play a power play role. I don't mind it. Moving on to the next blockbuster on the list. The Vegas Golden Knights acquire Noah Hannafin. The Calgary Flames acquire Daniil Miromanov, a conditional first, a conditional third. They retain 50% of Hannafin's contract, and Vegas gets Noah Hannafin at a double retention because there was another team involved to retain 25% of Noah Hannafin's contract. So Vegas gets Hannafin at a major, major discount thanks to the Philadelphia Flyers, who took a fifth to retain the half of the half per se. Um, I think this is a great trade for the Vegas Golden Knights. I think the Calgary Flames should have done a whole lot better. Noah Hannafin is somebody that really could be a top pairing defenseman. He's 27 years old. He's excellent on both sides of the ice. There aren't a lot of deficiencies in his game. Is he sensational at anything? Probably not, but he's very good at everything. Um, this makes a tremendous amount of sense for Vegas. It was the defense core that won them the Stanley Cup last year. It was how good that defense played, right? So why not, it's a method that has worked very recently. Why not have the method try it out again? And Noah Hannafin, he's got 2 assists in 2 games with Vegas already. I think this is awesome for the Knights. I think the Calgary Flames should have got a lot more. Brendan Brisson, I'm shocked he wasn't involved in this trade. Calgary basically gets a first round draft choice. Even the defenseman they got, it's not like this guy is, it's not like this guy's a prospect, James. Daniil Miromanov, this is a 26-year-old defenseman, right? And can he be useful? I think so. He's had some solid AHL seasons, hasn't quite broken into the Vegas Golden Knights yet. But it's not like you're getting a Hunter Brustevich like you did for Elias Lindholm. I think the Calgary Flames won the Lindholm trade and then lost the Hannafin trade by a lot. And maybe it balances out a little bit, but I think they could have done better.
So, I don't know. My take on this Hannafin deal is that Vegas obviously gets the best player and the biggest asset in the trade. I would have hoped Calgary would have maybe got an extra prospect, maybe something, but they clearly have some interest and value in Danilo Miramanov because they signed him to an extension right away and they project to have him playing and they have some interest in him being a player on that team. So that could be something that we're undershooting a bit, but regardless, Hannafin is like at worst a number three defenseman on a team, like at best probably a number two. I don't think he's a true number one, but like this is a guy who can play on a top pair in all situations. He's competent offensively, defensively, in transition. He seems very coachable, and I don't know. Vegas getting him is just wild. Like adding him to that decor that already has Petrangelo, Theodore, McNabb, Martinez, like Nick Hague. It's pretty wild. Like it's a lot. That is a big player. But they did their due diligence. They gave Calgary got a first round pick that they wanted. They got seemingly a roster player they wanted. And then they get the conditional third rounder that becomes the second rounder if Vegas wins a playoff round, which I'd be blown away if they don't. So that's a second rounder. Like they got assets. They did for a guy who clearly seemed to want out. And if this was the best package they got, then that means there wasn't a trade and then immediately sign an extension somewhere on the table somewhere else with that had a better package. So, I mean, they seemingly got the best that they could get. And I respect and understand that, right? I think that's about as decent as it's going to be.
Toronto adds another third pairing defenseman, Joel Edmondson, for a third and a fifth. Washington retain exactly half of Edmondson's contracts. I don't hate it. Um,
I think Edmonton's useful.
I do think he's useful. I think they probably, again, I said the same thing last year when they got Jake McCabe. I think their defense needs a little bit more help than what they did. Again, the salary cap constraints on that team are very real. So, Edmonton's only making 3.5, which means they get him for 1.75. But you know what? What they paid was totally not like too much by any stretch of the imagination, right? Washington recoups the third they paid Montreal for him in the first place. This isn't the Edmondson of St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup win where he was looking like he could easily be a strong second pairing defenseman. He fell off a little bit after that. Um, so I would, yeah, I would say solid trade for Toronto. I probably think they should have done more, but this trade in isolation is good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think like it's just needed defensive depth and retained salary. You're not going to get much more than that for the assets you paid, right? Next up, Blackhawks ship Anthony Beauvillier to the Predators. That was a short stay in Chicago for Mr. Beauvillier. I think he's got some upside in his game. It's just it shows sparingly. The Predators pick up a nice depth forward. That's really all I've got on that one, unless you have more.
I like it for Nashville because they, like I do like Beauvillier a lot. I'm probably a bigger fan of him than most. Um, Again, good for Chicago because they recoup the asset that they gave up for him in the first place.
Actually, one thing I'm curious about your perspective on is Montreal and Anaheim's trade, Jacob Perreault for Jan Misak. What do you think about that?
Again, I think it's just changes of scenery here in this deal specifically. Jan Misak, I thought pretty highly of him when he got drafted by Montreal. Like he had been playing, he split that season between playing pro in the Czech Republic and then playing in the OHL. But his transition to the AHL wasn't too great, so he gets a new start in San Diego for the Gulls. Jacob Perreault was a first rounder in 2020 who likewise didn't make a seamless jump from junior hockey to the AHL and will also get a fresh start. So, I think these kinds of trades should happen more, honestly, James. A young guy struggling that doesn't seem like he's going to figure it out on that team, just swap them, right? Two guys getting fresh starts, why not?
I agree. It should happen a lot more often, whereas sometimes you see it go down the other way where a guy toils in the minors and doesn't fit in the organization until he's 25 and then has to be on prove-it deals elsewhere, and then inevitably it either works out or doesn't, usually the latter. But yeah, happy with that deal, and I'm assuming both those two prospects are happy with that deal as well. Next up, Edmonton acquires Troy Stecher. We touched on that one earlier. They got him along with a seventh round pick for a fourth round pick that's going back to the Coyotes. Seemingly, the most interesting thing about this deal to me is that Coyotes pick that they acquired, like the fourth rounder. It's not until 2027.
Yeah, I get it, right? If you're the Edmonton Oilers, like you've traded a lot of picks and you've traded a lot of prospects, why not punt a fourth rounder down the road? And even at this point now, I'll tell you for a fact, the amateur scouts in Edmonton have a sense of their wish list come the fourth round of this draft, right? So, instead of giving up, okay, well, we know this prospect's going to be available in this first round. We really like him, so let's just trade a future pick. So, yeah, like if you're going to trade, let's say you're going to trade 8 draft picks, it's better you trade 8 draft picks over 4 drafts instead of 2 drafts. So yeah, I mean, and I like Stetcher. It was a good move for Edmonton. Again, playoffs are a war of attrition. It's the third time I've said that in this episode already. And Troy Stetcher gives them defensive depth when, I'm really not a huge Cody Ceci fan. He had a good first year in Edmonton, but he's been regressing since then. Vincent Desharnais has shown that he can be an NHL defenseman this year. He definitely didn't look it last year, but I think he's been good enough this year. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised to see Stetcher in for CC at some point in these playoffs on that right side.
Yeah, fair. Extra depth is something you can't argue with. A pair of moves in Colorado. Avalanche received forward Brandon Duhaime from the Wild in exchange for a third round pick in 2026. Then another move, this one made with Nashville, Colorado acquiring forward Yakov Trenin and defenseman Graham Sword. in exchange for a third round pick in 2025 and defenseman Jeremy Hansel. Colorado seemingly shoring up that forward depth. And whereas often you would see Curtis McDermott on that fourth line, right wing or left wing, now you will see one of Duhaime and Trennan, and then the other one probably playing on the third line, potentially the fourth line as well. So just really, really shoring up that forward depth where, I mean, since you look back since Colorado won the cup, it's definitely been depleted. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the deals. When Colorado played Nashville in the playoffs last, I hated Yakov Trenin. That guy was the biggest pest. He's effective on the forecheck, and seemingly he can score a big goal here and there. So, I mean, if that's something Colorado could boast and hold in their back pocket now, I'm happy with it. And those two third round picks in 2025 and 2026, and defenseman Jeremy Hansel, I don't really think they were going to have much of an impact on the roster. So, better to acquire something for the stretch run rather than hold on to smaller assets there. I mean, that's all I've got on those, I think.
I really like Trennan for Colorado. I think you're absolutely right that it's showing up the depth on the bottom six. James, again, like these are the moves to me for the Colorado Avalanche that the team that wins the Stanley Cup makes at the deadline. Honestly, like I totally think Colorado. You know, you can see the savviness of the Joe Sakic. I know he's not the GM, but the Joe Sakic led group, and even Graham Sword is a solid player to get back. Like he's having kind of an unbelievable season in the WHL this year. He is a 20-year-old, which, 20-year-olds in WHL tend to excel a little bit more than, what you're going to see from them at the next level. But that was a good player to get thrown in. They give up Jeremy Hansel, who was a sixth round pick in 2023, right? Like it's a guy that if he was ever going to make the NHL, was already a long shot to begin with. He's not having as good a year in the dub as Sword is either. So really, you give up a third round pick to upgrade on the two defensemen you're swapping and get Yakov Trenin. Like take that to the bank. Absolutely. Brandon Duhaime's a really effective player too. Like he's again the kind of guy you want on your fourth line if you're making a deep run.
Definitely. And that doesn't really end Colorado's forward additions. It ends the ones as required by trade, but Nikolai Kovalenko will seemingly be joining the team at the end of the season. So that's just another talented forward coming to the group as well. So like they're ending up pretty loaded in that sense. And middle stat solves the center issue. So
I think Nikolai Kovalenko is one of the five best players playing outside of North America right now, without a doubt. Not even North America, like that outside of the NHL or the AHL. Like, you've got Alexander Nikishin and Matvey Michkov in the KHL as well. And all three of those guys could be super effective. I don't know if he's going to be Kaprizov, but I could totally see him being a step above even Kuzmenko if you're talking late bloomers to come over from Russia.
definitely, definitely. And speaking of effective wingers, Lightning landing forward Anthony Duclair from the San Jose Sharks, along with a seventh round pick in exchange for a third round pick and defenseman Jack Thompson. I don't know anything about Jack Thompson. Do you? Was this just a roster spot going the other way? Is that all this is?
No, dude, honestly, I was really surprised Thompson was involved. Like I like him. I do. I like him a lot. And for a Tampa Bay Lightning team that, you know, have traded a lot of their picks, have traded a lot of their prospects, have traded a lot of their future assets. I'm a little bit surprised that a third round pick like Jack Thompson, that kind of, to me, felt a little bit like found money. Like he's a right shot defenseman that I think his ceiling could even be quarterbacking a second power play unit in the NHL. He's a really smart player. He's a good puck mover. He's got good offensive sense. And in the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, I figured that the coaching and development he'd get would help his defensive game a little bit, which I thought he needed. But he'll get more opportunities in San Jose. I think this is a future NHLer that they got back in this trade, so I think they did very well.
Maybe they didn't think they needed them because they had 5 assists in one game, man, Mr. Darren Radish.
Darren Radish, I like him a lot. That's another found money guy for them.
All right, well, moving on. Probably the biggest trade of deadline day, maybe second biggest. I'd say it's right in there. Carolina won the Jake Gensel sweepstakes. Like They're the ones that came out with all of those teams that were involved. I think at different times there were probably 8 different teams involved that we knew of. Think about how many teams we didn't know of, at least sniffed around. But Carolina eventually gets it, acquiring Gensel along with defenseman Ty Smith, who just wasn't really working out in Pittsburgh, wasn't given as much of an opportunity as I'd like to see. But in exchange, they send over Michael Bunting and then forward prospects Vasily Ponomarev, Billy Koivunen, Cruz Lucius, and then a conditional fifth rounder as well as a conditional first rounder. That first rounder doesn't feel like a first rounder because the condition is it's only a first rounder if the Hurricanes make the finals. I don't think they're going to make the finals. So if they don't, and I'm right, then it will become Philadelphia's second rounder in 2024, so this year's draft. Yeah, and then the fifth round pick, I also don't think they'll get because they only get it if the Hurricanes win the cup. So, I mean, both of these are possible. These could become the biggest assets available, but I don't really think it's going to work out. To me, Jake Gensel hops into a really crowded forward core in Carolina. Like he's going to be given a lot of opportunity, but um, there's a lot of guys there who chip in. Natchez and Seth Jarvis both get a lot of opportunity. Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov, we can't talk about them enough. And then the one you slot out is Michael Bunting, but then there's also Teuvo Teravainen around. I'm very curious to see how they set up their forward lines and what adjustments are made going down the stretch and into the playoffs. He could be a first line forward, he could be a second line forward. Either way, he's a dynamic difference maker that they've added.
Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes are in a position right now where I think they needed to do this without a doubt. Like totally should be all in. They often don't go get rentals, and like I get it. It's just a team thing. Like we don't want to pay a lot for a guy who's going to walk in free agency right after. But I think they needed to do this. I saw a lot of people criticizing what Pittsburgh got back for Gensel. I totally disagree with that. Again, I get it. You probably should have got the first round pick. I totally understand that. But let's take a look at every piece they got, okay? Michael Bunting's 28 years old, very effective second line winger, does a lot for you, is a pain in the butt to play against, as well as having a good offensive touch. The guy had 63 points in his rookie year, playing with some pretty good players, mind you, but still 36 points in 60 games is nothing to turn your nose at. He's going to be a 20 goal scorer for the third consecutive season this year, unless he falls off massively to finish off the season. Prospect Cruz Lucius, again, I understand. He was a fourth round pick. Maybe doesn't look like much. He's had back-to-back point per game seasons now at the University of Wisconsin if he continues and manages to finish this season with a point per game. This is a very talented hockey player. Vasily Ponomarev, I've loved him since he was drafted. This is a guy who I really think slots in as a very effective third line center in the NHL. Think somebody like Lars Eller, right? Or Lars Eller in his prime. That's kind of what I see out of Ponomarev, a responsible player who can put the puck in the back of the net, can play on the second power play unit, can penalty kill, and can be that 3C that every competitive team really wants. And then Ville Koivunen, man. This is a 20-year-old Ville Koivunen who is playing the top division of men's professional hockey in Finland and has scored 21 goals and 55 points in 58 games. That is an excellent number for this player. He's producing very well there. He had a 12-game cameo with the Chicago Wolves last season, only scored 1 goal in 12 games. I can understand why that might deter some people away from the prospect. He didn't make the jump to the European game, but he was 19 years old at the time. I think that there's a very good chance that the Pittsburgh Penguins got 3 NHL players. Obviously, it's not, the likelihood is they didn't. The likelihood is not all 3 of these guys hit as full-time NHLers, but I think that possibility is definitely on the table. And to get Michael Bunting, who's already an effective second liner, and 3 prospects that all very well could be NHL players, Pittsburgh did well.
Definitely. And I mean, when you look at a cupboard that was fairly empty aside from a couple prospects, like you add 3 guys. And hypothetically, any of these 3 guys working out better than expectations, or all of them working out to expectations, or one of them not working out, maybe 2 of them not working out, that's a lot of opportunity. Like that's a lot of different things that could work out. And for an empty cupboard, I think that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do with your pending UFAs.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Could they have got one big prospect instead? Maybe. It's possible. There could have been something else on the table. Earlier, we talked about how a Capo Caco recovery project from the Rangers seemingly was on the table. I mean, would you have preferred that? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
S- Yeah, so I don't know. I think like at first glance you go, where's the big piece? I think if you're annoyed about anything, it should be the fact that it wasn't a guaranteed first.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even then, like maybe you don't know what that negotiation was. Mm, I say this as a maybe. There's a good chance that if it was a guaranteed first, they don't get all three of those prospects. And maybe Pittsburgh was really high on all three of them. It makes sense. They're all good players. Um, Carolina also gets Evgeny Kuznetsov for a third round pick. Washington retains 50% of Kuznetsov's salary. I like this gamble. This is very much a proven playoff performer, one of just a handful of players since the lockout to score 30 points or more in a single playoff run. Washington doesn't win the Stanley Cup in 2018 without him playing as well as he does. To me, honestly, James, this is an add to the first power play unit, and that's it. Like Kuznetsov has been really poor outside of when he has the puck in the offensive zone making a pass. That is the only area of his game that is still elite. And I hate to say it because I really, really liked this guy, but he has fallen off. That's just a fact. He's not playing as well as he, has previously in his career. But I like the gamble from Carolina. Cost you a third round pick, and as you're trying to win the Stanley Cup, that third round pick shouldn't be viewed as, a huge amount to give up.
I like it as well because if you see your forward core struggling and you can't really seem to get goals, what if you decide to spread everything out among four lines and you put together like a Jarvis Kuznetsov Gensel line to see if you can get something going there? And then like you've got your Aho Sveshnikov line, then you've got your Kotkaniemi Teravainen line, and then you have your Jordan Staal I will rain hell on you line. Like it gives them a lot of options, and I really like that for them because you know what? There's going to be times when you can't work it out and you can't score. That happened to them in the conference finals last year. Sometimes it's just because you run into a hot goalie, but sometimes you have to find other ways to make things click. And Kuznetsov, his prime has faded, but this is still a pretty creative player. This is still a guy who might be able to make something out of nothing at the right time. If he scores you two goals the whole playoff run, those two goals you bought for a third round pick. Imagine both those two goals are game winners. I think that's worth more than a third rounder.
Sure, yeah. Tyler Toffoli fetches a second and a third. I like the trade for both teams. I think Jersey probably could have got like a smidgen more, especially considering they retained 50% to let Winnipeg help them, or sorry, to help Winnipeg fit him in under the salary cap. But I don't think either team should be complaining about this. Winnipeg get a very effective second line forward who has scored 60 goals over his last, 1 and 3/4 of a season. So no, both teams should be happy. Second round pick, third round pick for New Jersey's not a bad return for a pending UFA either.
Definitely. I can't really add anything else other than I think if New Jersey fans are disappointed about anything, it's that Winnipeg paid more for Monahan, seemingly. Like it felt like they paid more for Monahan, but just because there was the conditional first in there, right? For Monahan. So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I think New Jersey would have liked a chance at a first rounder for him. But I mean Toffoli's a pretty damn good player, right? So it's tough. I think I would have liked to see a little bit more.
Patrick Maroon to Boston, another good depth add. They give up Loop to Toporowski, sorry, as well as a sixth round pick. Yeah, nothing
Say
wrong with
that name
this.
5 times fast.
Yeah, and you know what? This guy, he had a good first season with the Providence Bruins. Boston's AHL team has a lot of solid players on it. Some of them, your young guys like John Farinacci, Fabian Lysell, Gregory Merkulov, and then some of them are your like Jason Magnas, the vets. Jesper Boqvist played 31 games on that team this year, so he was getting buried in that lineup. That's just a fact. So, I think a fresh start for him is a good thing because he showed flashes both in junior and in his first AHL season of being a solid scorer. And he's had a good start with Iowa, goal and 3 points in 2 games. And for Patrick Maroon in Boston, I really, really hope that he refuses to answer any Jack Edwards questions in any interviews. But aside from that, I like the move for Boston. Add a vet piece to just play on the fourth line and do the little things right.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I he very much fits a Bruin style of play, like the traditional Bruin style of play, rather. And I don't know, he's a heart and soul guy, and you can't really have enough of those. He's still good enough to play in the NHL. I haven't really seen anything to say otherwise. So, yeah, that's all I really got on that one. Just a handful of minor league moves to run with. The Sharks add goaltender Devin Cooley for a seventh round pick. I don't know too much about him, but they seem to like him enough to acquire him. The Flames send a conditional fifth rounder to the Sharks in exchange for defenseman Nikita Ohatiuk. How do you say this one, Aiden?
I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We're gonna go with Ohatiuk. They're getting the better of Chicago's two fifth rounders in exchange for that defenseman. The only thing I know about him is that in one of my NHL franchise modes 3 years ago, he was a very good second pair defenseman 14 years down the line. So there's a nugget of info for you. Um, the Panthers and Penguins did a little minor league goalie swap. Penguins receiving goaltender Ludovic Weber and a seventh round pick in exchange for goaltender Magnus Hellberg. Hellberg actually has pretty good numbers this year. I thought he could have maybe been a little bit effective at the NHL level. I haven't seen anything visually, but numbers don't lie, and they look solid. Um, Blue Jackets got Malcolm Subban from the Blues in exchange for future considerations. I'll be honest, I didn't even know he was part of the Blues organization, but he's not anymore, so I can scratch that one off. Colorado trades away forward Ben Myers to the Ducks for a fifth round pick. Colorado sent out a lot of draft picks, recouping one's nice, and Ben Myers wasn't really working out. He was a pretty highly touted free agent coming out of college, and I had hopes he would be an effective third liner. It didn't really work out, but the one thing the guy has is hustle. He always got in there and gave it his best. So I hope he does well in Anaheim. He's a nice complement to everything that they're building there, where they've got some young guys, and I mean he's in his mid 20s or so now, so he's still got some time to grow and mature with that team if he sticks around. And then this one, I will actually ask you a little bit about it instead of ranting it. The Sharks get forward Klim Kostin from the Red Wings in exchange for defenseman Radim Šimek. I thought Šimek was one of few effective defensemen in keeping games from being 7-0 in San Jose. This was kind of perplexing to me.
I think it makes a lot of sense. He's 31 years old, right? You're trading him to Detroit, who I think, again, defensive depth, nothing to complain about. Like you said, he's a left shot defenseman that, can be quite effective. He hasn't played for the Sharks this year either, right? Like he's been in the AHL all season, which probably helped San Jose,
Okay, let's excuse everything I said about that trade then.
Yeah, I mean I liked him last year in the NHL, right? But he hasn't been there for San Jose this year. They've got other defensemen that they like more, right? Like Henry Thrun made that jump to the
They're
NHL.
burying him in the minors so they can tank.
Yeah, maybe. Vlasic, Mario Ferraro. They got Jan Ruda this year too. I'm pretty sure this is his first season there, so he got buried a little bit. I like the Klim Kostin acquisition for San Jose though, right? Like he's shown flashes throughout his career of being able to put the puck in the back of the net and use that 6'4" frame to wreak some havoc. Looked like he was there in Edmonton, 11 goals in 57 games. Looked like he'd solidified himself as a third liner, and then Edmonton uses him as the sweetener to dump Yamamoto's contract to Detroit, and then he doesn't really do anything in Detroit. So I think another fresh start for Costin isn't a bad thing. San Jose will hope he can turn into an effective middle six forward. I probably see him projecting more as a fourth liner, but let's bet on the upside.
Inside scoop from someone who worked in the Oilers organization when they had Costin. He was always a pleasure to be around. Very pleasant, upbeat person. So that's probably a nice thing to have in San Jose.
Jake Allen to New Jersey for a third. Um, this is interesting. New Jersey's goaltending now. We can loop in the other trade as well. They send Vitek Vanacek in a seventh to San Jose for Kaapo Kähkönen. Is Vanacek moving out and Kähkönen and Allen coming in? Is that an upgrade? What do you think?
Um, yeah,
I think so too.
yeah. I had to think about it.
Yeah, no, it's worth pondering, but I definitely I definitely think so.
Jake
Uh,
Allen battles. Like that's one thing.
yeah,
Like even when the
totally.
team's getting smoked, like he does battle for the whole game.
Rangers get a good defense pickup in Chad Ruhwedel from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh get a fourth rounder. Nobody's going to complain about that. Nashville pay a sixth rounder for Jason Zucker. I think that's fine business from the Predators. They pay a fifth for Beauvillier and a sixth for Zucker. That's two players who, yeah, might play bottom six winger roles. Could definitely fill out on the second power play unit. They both have some skill. They both have some scoring ability. Um, Nick Patan goes to the Rangers, another depth pickup. I've always been a Patan fan. Eric Johnson to Philadelphia for a fourth round pick. I really like that for the Flyers, right? They're
Me
still
too.
right in the playoff hunt. Eric Johnson is an excellent depth defenseman. Uh, Makes your bottom pairing better no matter who his partner is going to be, no matter who he's replacing. This
He's
is
a great leader too, though. Like I can't say enough good things about the guy.
This is an interesting one. Wade Allison is going to go from Philadelphia to Nashville for Denis Guryanov. Wade Allison played 60 games in 22-23, but had been much like Radim Simek stuck in the minors this year. He's 26. Guryanov's 26. Guryanov had been pretty much in the AHL the entirety of the season too, saved for 14 games. I really like betting on Guryanov's upside. Well, we all remember the season in which he looked like he was going to one day be a 30 goal scorer. He had 20 in 64 games in Dallas and then had nine in the playoffs and 17 points. Was just electric on the power play, had a 4 goal game against Calgary in that first round. Like, this is a guy who really did look like he was going to be an effective NHLer, and it just didn't work out, especially after the trade to Montreal. Didn't click for him in Nashville. Again, another guy getting a fresh start. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about what Guryanov could have been and what he looked like he would be. So, I mean, it's low risk, high reward, and they weren't using Wade Allison. Why not, right? Yeah, I think I really, really want to see him given a sizable opportunity. I would love to see him played on a third line and maybe second power play with some offensively gifted guys if they deem he has earned that. I think it's the kind of thing where you could catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's got the potential to be. Speaking of, another lightning in the bottle-esque trade, Jack Roslovic for a fourth. What do you think of that?
I think I've
Roslovic
seen,
to the Rangers, by the way, should be said from
yeah,
Columbus.
yeah, I think I've seen a 9 game stretch where Roslovic puts up 8 points before. Like he has offensive skill. I don't think he'll be utilized as much in that role, but he's kind of going to be a fill in the blanks kind of player in New York. And I think having that extra utility, that's just another benefit for them. Like that's really solid depth. One more note about the when they acquired Chad Ruedel, the fourth rounder that they sent the Penguins becomes a third rounder if the Rangers reach the Cup final. So there
Possible.
there's yeah, there's a lot hinging for Pittsburgh on which team in the East is from the Metro could make that final because they've got all of this stuff on the Hurricanes reaching either the third or fourth round. And now they've got one on if the Rangers make it that far. So I think it's kind of funny that they hedged their bet basically.
Matt Dumba to Tampa Bay with a seventh for a fifth. Another depth D-man pickup for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know how much he plays down the stretch there. Calvin DeHaan, Eric Chernak. I think when Mikhail Sergachev comes back, he might get pushed out, if I'm going to be honest with you. Again, we've talked about Darren Radish. He's had a really good year. Nick Perbix has had a really good year in Tampa Bay as well, 25-year-old right shot defenseman. I think Dumba actually ends up the seven in the playoffs. But again, didn't pay much. Got a seventh for a fifth. So basically, like traded down in the draft and got Dumba. Why not?
Added
Um,
depth, can't complain.
Speaking of right shot defensemen, I think Boston really hit a home run here. Andrew Peak for Jakub Zaboral on a third round pick. Jakub Zaboral was not going to work out in Boston. It was over. He looked like he might break through and hung around the taxi squad in that season. Only 10 games in 21-22, 22 games last year, stuck in Providence this year. I don't think it was going to happen for the Bruins and Zaboral. He's 27 now. He gets a fresh start in Columbus. Third rounder ends the world, not too much to pay for Andrew Peak, who is a very effective number 4, 5, 5, 6 defenseman. Um, Steady in his own zone, decent first pass. Yeah, he's just solid, and he's 25. Room to grow.
Yeah, if he's a number 4 or 5 on your team, that's perfectly fine. If he's a number 6, then you're looking really good.
Totally. And probably the last I want to say blockbuster. Yeah, last blockbuster. The one that nobody saw coming. You kind of said this. You asked who's going to be the guy that gets traded that nobody saw coming. And I thought that it was Casey Middlestat, to be completely honest with you. Um, it turned out it wasn't Casey Middlestat, or at least not as much. Middlestat didn't fit this bill as much as Tomas Hertl did. It's Hertl and a pair of third rounders from San Jose to Vegas in exchange for David Edstrom and a 2025 first round draft choice. Edstrom continues the long line of Vegas Golden Knights first round picks to be traded away right after Vegas drafts them. Um, and Vegas gets Hertl at 17% retained. I'm Vegas is probably, no matter what happens this year, Vegas is probably my most interesting team to watch in the offseason because they're only able to do this because Mark Stone's on long-term injured reserve, and they're going to be way over the salary cap when the start of next season rolls around because Hertl, even at 17% retained, is still going to be a big ticket coming in, and he's under contract till 2030.
They actually won't be as interesting because I think they're going to let Jonathan Marchessault walk.
Yeah, well, and to me, that's interesting in itself, right? A Conn Smythe Trophy winner that's been with the team since day one, being your cap casualty, right? Like that's gonna hurt that team, much like Riley Smith's leaving did.
Yeah, I think it's just a slow changing of the guard, and now you've got the probably more versatile player in Hurdle, like probably a
No
bigger
doubt.
upside.
Yeah.
Marchessault is the kind of guy who always played above what he was. Like that guy he's nonstop giving you his best. But I think they're going for the safer and younger bet in Hurdle. I think that's what this is.
Yeah, totally. And again, proven playoff guy. He's performed quite well in every playoffs the San Jose Sharks have been in. Um, yeah, 35 goal upside, no doubt. 70-point upside, no doubt. Yeah, this is a guy that can put the puck in the back of the net. He's strong. He can play the powered forward game. He can play the skilled forward, leading the rush and offensive transition game. Like nothing but a good thing for Vegas. David Edstrom was 32nd overall. Showed some showed some upside offensively last year. He's getting buried in Frölunda a little bit. Frölunda's a strong team, and he's playing in the SHL, which is Div 1 in Sweden. He played in the Swedish Junior League last year and did a lot better. So we'll see exactly what this guy is when he starts to acclimate more to professional hockey. And yeah, I think it's a good bet for San Jose. I think they should, without a doubt, be sellers, especially sellers of a 30-year-old Thomas Hertl. I think this trade is going to look very good for them in 4 years.
Well, speaking of changing of the guard, the Buffalo Sabres have traded away their captain Kyle Okposo to the Florida Panthers. Another solid pickup by the Panthers in exchange for defenseman Callie Stalin and a conditional seventh rounder. It becomes a fifth if Florida wins the cup. Florida's forward depth is crazy. That's all I really have to say about this, other than who is the Buffalo Sabres next captain? My money's on Alex Tuck.
I think it's a slam dunk that it's Alex Tuck. Listen, and again, like I'm not trying to, crap on Buffalo here. It's not often that a guy gets traded to Buffalo, or it's not often, at least in the last 15 years, that a guy's been traded to Buffalo and he's been pumped about it. And Alex Tuck was pumped to be a Saber, and I think that's definitely worth something. Dylan Cousins is another guy, character guy, does everything right. I like him a lot, but I think it's got to be Tuck as well.
Yeah, like it could be any of many guys, but Tuck seems like the slam dunk. I agree with you there. Moving on though, The Winnipeg Jets get defenseman Colin Miller from the New Jersey Devils for a fourth rounder. I think Colin Miller is a solid, usable defenseman.
I love it for two reasons. Number one, I like Colin Miller totally. Um, the second reason is, do you remember the Vegas Golden Knights in 2017-18, who their top pair of defense was? Because Shea Theodore wasn't actually quite on the top pair. He played more with Derek Englund on the second pair. Do you remember who the top pair was?
Um, well, judging by what you're saying, it was Colin Miller, and then used to play for the Capitals, went to the Canucks, and then went to the Jets and has been around Nate Schmidt.
Yeah, Nate Schmidt and Colin Miller were very, 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 very good together. And now they have a chance to reunite on, probably Winnipeg's. Would it be so crazy to say fourth pairing? I don't think so. Morrissey, DeMello, Dillon, and Pionk is probably their top four. So you have, a roll of the dice, a gamble, but I like the gamble, putting, having the chance to reunite Miller and Schmidt. And yeah, they were very good, man, in that first season in Vegas. They were excellent together, both in the playoffs and in the regular season.
Wait, you said fourth pair.
No,
Is
third
there,
pair, sorry. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay. I was gonna say, is there a fifth and sixth
yeah.
defenseman you're gonna mention?
No, no, no. Uh, third pair, so they get some sheltered minutes, not too tough opponent. And no, I like the bet a lot for Winnipeg. Fourth rounders, not too much to give up for a solid right shot defenseman.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think that's it, right? Is that every trade?
Yeah, because we already touched on Vanacek, Kakinen. Yeah, yeah, we did
Wow.
it. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Oh, does your brain kind of feel like all over the place? Mine does.
A little bit. But I know you're itching to get to this, and so just talk about Connor Bedard and hockey cards for a while here. Just take it
Well,
away.
as you're a guy who collected hockey cards at various points throughout your life, and I am as well. I've never stopped. I've downsized quite a bit over the years, but usually when a box of the new Series 1 or Series 2 comes out with the best rookie, it's like, I don't know, like $150 when it's a good rookie class. And in recent years, when prices have gone up, this year they were $350. Because one Mr. Connor Bedard, his Young Guns rookie card is in there. It has ranged from $800 to $1,000 in price since release. No doubt a little bit of inflation there, but that's just, I mean, I don't think it's gonna hold there considering a McDavid's like 1,200. But recency hype, and that's the way it goes. But I was picking up another card of mine from grading and dropping another one off, and some guys that I used to work with had, I want to say, 10 of these Upper Deck 23-24 Series 2 hobby boxes that have Bedard in there. They had 10 of those boxes. And they went, "You want to buy one?" And then they gave me the rundown on which case each box came from. And I went, I shouldn't. I have to be on the road for a dentist appointment in 10 minutes. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll get one. And I keep trying to get them to pick one for me because I usually have bad luck with boxes when I pick the box myself. And then they gave me options. And then what the last guy said was, I usually pick the one that's closest to me. So I went, well, that seems dumb. And I picked the one furthest from me. And um, yeah, it was a $350 box that I got for 300. So that felt like, okay, it's cheaper than usual slightly, I guess, even though this year is so much more expensive than it should be. And my first pack, I got like $150 Kevin Korchinski card. And I was like, oh, well, that's a good start. And then my thought was, well, that's going to be the best card in there. It pays for half the box. And then a few packs later, there he was, Connor Bedard. I pulled his young gun. And I just remember looking like, really? Today's a good day. Damn. And yeah, that box paid for itself in threefold over. And then I got another rookie card of Canadians defenseman Sean Farrell that's worth like $50. So I got about $1,000 out of there. It was pretty sweet. And I immediately sent that Bedard off for grading. It looked like it was in perfect shape, and it may end up being quite the gem of my collection. But yeah, it's Bedard mania for sure. I mean, the really sad thing about the value of this card right from release is it eliminates a lot of kids from the hobby because Aiden, you could probably speak to this. Do you have any memories of going to Walmart or your local shop and picking up one of those tins, those Series 1 or Series 2 tins or small boxes like the blaster box for between like 20 and $40?
Oh yeah, like all the time, right? And even like was a hobby box guy for a couple years and then they just got too expensive. That was really what it was.
Well, do you know what these Bedard tins are going for?
Tell me.
115.
Yeah, that's yeah. No, pass.
And you're guaranteed two young guns in there. And out of the 50 or so young gun set, that's 1 in 25 shot at Bedard. Whereas with the hobby box, which is now about between 300 and 350, you're guaranteed six young guns in there. And so that's, I mean, three times better of a chance, but still, it's really sad that a lot of kids are being priced out of the hobby. Yes, fun for me pulling the big ticket item. Sure, I'm not going to discount that. I had a great day. But yeah, I wish more kids could stay involved in the hobby because that's how I got into it. That's how you got into it. That's like being like 8, 9 years old and your parents buying you a $20 little blaster box or tin or a couple small packs. Those were affordable and it was like that's not going to break the bank and the kid loves it. So unfortunately, that's probably not something that's going to be happening as much. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But then we move on to the topic of long-term injured reserve, specifically based on the stuff Vegas has been doing. Mark Stone is on LTIR with a lacerated spleen. Yes, that sounds gross because it is gross. That's really unfortunate and can be quite painful from what I gather. And believe it or not, Aiden, I don't think you're aware of this, but Kelly McCrimmon on the Jeff Merrick show today addressed the controversy.
Do you have a quote?
Yeah, the Vegas Golden Knights general manager said, Google lacerated spleen and see if you can tell me when a player is going to be back. It's ridiculous to suggest that these aren't significant injuries. And yeah, and he said, furthermore, the National Hockey League polices all of this. The rules are the rules, and the NHL watches this carefully. Um, and then he said last year we acquired Ivan Barbashev, Jonathan Quick, and Teddy Bluger at the deadline. I'd suggest to you that we probably could have acquired all three players without Mark Stone's LTIR. This year, it happened that there were opportunities available to use that space, so that's what we did. The flip side is that we have 9.5 million of LTR space as a general manager and sit on your hands. I don't think that's doing our job the way we should. And then he adds that LTIR is collectively bargained between the Players Association and the NHL. The idea behind it is if you have a player suffer a significant injury, you can replace that player. Obviously, from there, it's the timing of the injuries. What are your thoughts?
I don't disagree with anything he said. I didn't hear anything that he said that was incorrect. I didn't hear anything that he said that was unfair. Um, listen, I don't like Vegas. I don't want them to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
They're not
same.
they're not cheating. Like this is well within the rules of the NHL. I have this attitude with everything in sports. Do you dislike at something a team is doing? Okay, well then that's when you advocate for a rule change. You don't just crap on the team that's doing it. The Tampa Bay Lightning said to the NHL when this was being put in place that this could be a problem, and they were talking about addressing or creating a rule to address the LTIR to the playoffs kind of thing that they did with Nikita Kucherov.
And then
Um,
the NHL said no and basically said screw off. And then Chicago used the rule and won the cup.
and then Tampa Bay used the rule and won the cup years later.
Yeah.
So again, like yeah, if you have a problem with this, advocate for a rule change. Don't be like, oh, Vegas are a bunch of crooks because it's like McCrimmon said, there are rules, they're following the rules.
Yeah. That's really all I have on it. And I don't know, like I love discussion in sports. This creates a lot of discussion. It's kind of fun, but I'm just so sick of this drum being beat. I'm kind of numb to the storyline, and I don't really care anymore. I saw a couple good memes. I like good memes.
Yeah, me too. Well, okay, so our last words on this period ever, or
Ever?
at least till it's significant again. The last word on the 23-24 Golden Knights LTIR then. Give me the rule you'd implement if you'd implement a rule to negate the misuse of this per se.
Make it so there's an active salary cap in the playoffs that's the same as the regular season. If a player is coming off LTIR in the playoffs, you have to make that comply. There would be no waivers in the playoffs. So if you have to send a player down to the minors to make that room work so that you can have your whoever come off LTIR, then that's the way it is.
I like that. I think that's option A. My option B, I think if you this
I
is a
hope
little
you're
bit
going
more.
somewhere weird with this. I have
Oh
a
yeah,
feeling.
totally, totally. No, no. Yours is the normal, real, probable idea. Mine is the they're not going to do this, but it might be cool idea. Well, not cool. I mean, we're talking about players being injured. None of this is cool. It's just a hypothetical. If you don't play in game 82 of the regular season, you can't play till the second round. Why not? Right? Like, if you're so hurt that you can't play in game 82, then okay, then you got to play in the second round, right? Or if you didn't play any of your team's last five regular season games or something, because sometimes if there's no standing implications, guys are just left out in game 82 just because, right? So you have to be activated on LTIR by game 82 or second round of the playoffs. Then that's when you're eligible to return. The other thing, James, is the fact that I still think that there should be a luxury tax in the NHL. I don't mind if the luxury tax is copious and it's a ton of money to go even a dollar over the soft salary cap. That's fine, but have it, right? Because guess what? If a team like Vegas is going to be super competitive and go way over the salary cap, that literally is just more money for the league, period. That that the team owners and the team itself will have to pay to the NHL. So I again, I actually think the next time a CBA is negotiated, this is going to be the big thing, and we should all be ready for the L word to maybe start creeping up again because this is going to be a huge deal to players, and it's going to be a huge deal to the NHL to keep the hard cap, and we all just have to be ready for that.
My prediction is one person on the board of governors brings it to the table, another one somewhat supports it, the rest shoot it down, and we are back to where we are now.
That's possible, but I wonder how hard and fast the NHLPA stays on. We have to change something.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all we have on that topic. Do we have any trivia? Do you have any trivia for me other than what we had at the start? Because I know it isn't the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast, unless we've got a couple great games to play.
I just have one career trajectory for you today. Um, this player played in the NHL spanning from 2007 until 2023. His career path is as follows: Columbus Blue Jackets, New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators, Pittsburgh Penguins, Florida Panthers, Colorado Avalanche, New York Islanders, Arizona Coyotes, Philadelphia Flyers, Edmonton Oilers, Ottawa Senators.
That is Mr. Derek Brassard.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, like no one else has a career trajectory like that.
No, I was just I thought of Brassard because I was thinking of uh you know, not trade deadline deals necessarily, but a team who makes a trade that, impacts a playoff run in the moment, but doesn't look too good down the line. And Derek Brassard being traded from Mika Zibanejad is a prime example of that.
You know what's one thing I always think of when I hear the name Derek Brassard is not that moment actually. I think of an interview with John Davidson, who was an executive in the Blue Jackets organization for a long time, and then he wasn't, and now he's back there. He talked about in an interview how difficult it is to find a good center, like an elite center in the NHL. And he said, over all of those years, probably the best one we managed to find and develop was Derek Brassard. And he was saying that's not a bad player. He was probably a second line center, That's like a very good second line center in his prime. But that just goes to show how difficult it is to find, acquire, or develop that number one center.
I like that. You have anything for me, or are we going to answer the one submitted question we got?
I got nothing for you this time, but I'm going to think of something very odd and wacky for the next one, something unorthodox that we have not done, and something to make your brain scratch and tingle. That is a promise that I have for you for next week's episode.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to it. We had one question submitted this week. Um, that is partially because I didn't put it on Instagram because I forgot and we didn't know exactly when we were recording this. I'll put one on Instagram for the next one. But the funniest NHL moments that don't get talked about enough was what we were asked to come up with. Do you have anything off the top of your head? Because I got one, and it's like it's somewhat recent, so it's gonna feel like it was talked about enough, but I still don't feel like it was talked about as much as it should have for how funny it was.
Um, I mean, the one I have is the only reason it comes to mind immediately is because it's something I do. I believe it was Evgeny Kuznetsov went for a fist bump on the bench. The other player didn't notice, and he fist bumped himself. And that's something I do and have done, I want to say twice in the past week. Like if I hold my hand out for a fist bump and there's like more than 3 to 5 seconds that goes by and I see this person is not noticing that's happening, I'll just give it the old, well, I guess if you're going to support anyone, you might as well support yourself there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The one I was gonna say was the whole Carolina Hurricanes, Montreal Canadiens thing. I think the fact that Carolina so blatantly offer sheeted Jesperi Kotkaniemi out of spite because Montreal had tendered an offer sheet to Sebastian Aho the year before is really, 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 really funny. Um, the fact that they paralleled the press release, right? Just changed the words.
Yeah.
The fact that like there was like little pieces of Kokaniemi's contract that were like Sebastian Aho's number, right? Like it was just like a $20 signing bonus or something. Um, it's I don't I cannot remember in the NHL any other like clearly this general manager spitefully targeted this general manager for something that he had done the year prior. Like that is ridiculously specific to me. I also think offer sheets don't happen in the NHL nearly as much as they should. Like again, I understand that the way it's viewed in the circle of general managers, but I totally think it's a weapon at teams' disposal, and in a hard cap world, you should be weaponizing it because at the end of the day, like you're not only making your team stronger, you're making your opponent weaker. And I'm sorry, that is, in the pursuit of success. That's part of the game here. But man, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I want more GM pettiness and more offer sheets because I love chaos. So that's something that I will always advocate for in the NHL. Always. I like I always think back to the Dustin Penner one where Brian Burke wanted to who is it that he wanted to fight in a barn? He wanted to rent a barn and fight.
I don't remember.
But it was a great story, and for anyone who wants the whole story, go read Brian Burke's book, Burke's Law. It's a banger of a book for any hockey fan, and a lot of fun inside looks into pieces of NHL history that he was a part of. But aside from that, the only thing I have is Aiden is now a member of my fantasy hockey league. Yeah. So now when I talk about fantasy hockey in here and some random dumb stuff I did in it, Aiden will be able to offer insight and judge me for it, and I like that. So I think unless my co-host has anything else to add, I think that's all we've got for today. So without further ado, let's roll that outro. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.